When you finally went quiet longer than she ever imagined you would, something in her world shifted. At first, she brushed it off, convinced you were just trying to make a point, trying to get a reaction out of her. She told herself, he'll be back. He always comes back. And that belief wasn't built on hope. It was built on how predictably you responded before. You were the one who texted again after arguments. You were the one who tried to fix things when she pulled away. You were the one who carried the emotional weight of the connection. So when you disappeared into silence without warning, without explanation, it rattled the foundation of control she thought she had. Your silence didn't just pause the conversation, it shattered her illusion of certainty because the truth is she was used to having you available emotionally, mentally, sometimes even physically. She knew that a message from her, even a short one, could pull you right back in. She knew she could hurt you, distance herself, give minimal effort, and you would still respond with presence, with patience, with a willingness to try. That access gave her a sense of comfort, a sense of power, and she didn't misuse it intentionally. She simply assumed you would always be there. But silence changes the dynamic between two people more powerfully than words ever could. Silence says, I've had enough without shouting. Silence says, I'm choosing myself without needing justification. Silence takes back all the energy you used to give, and that's what shook her the most because your silence wasn't passive. It was deliberate. It was calm. It was strength she didn't expect from you. It was you stepping out of her emotional orbit and becoming untouchable. She didn't see it coming because she never believed you would reach that point. And when you did, it exposed something she had ignored for too long. She wasn't in control of this connection like she thought. Suddenly, she wasn't the one deciding when you talk, when you reconcile, when you show affection. Suddenly, she wasn't the one steering the emotional direction. And for a woman who believed she held the upper hand, that realization hit hard. At first, she tried to justify your silence. Maybe he's busy, maybe he's tired, maybe he needs a break. But as time stretched, her explanations ran out. She started replaying the last messages, the last conversations, the last moments you shared. Not because she missed you in the beginning, but because she needed to figure out why her usual influence wasn't working anymore. And that's when confusion turned into discomfort. Discomfort turned into worry. Worry turned into fear because silence is powerful when it comes from a man who used to care loudly. Your silence forced her to realize something she never admitted to herself. She depended on your emotional presence more than she thought. She relied on your reassurance, your patience, your forgiveness. And suddenly, all of that was gone. The energy she once took for granted vanished, and with it, the sense of security she built around your presence. Now she wasn't just wondering why you stopped talking, she was wondering what it meant about your feelings. She was wondering if someone else had your attention now, if you finally realized your worth, if you finally got tired of being the only one trying, and the longer you stayed silent, the heavier that fear grew. That's the first sign that regret has already started. When your silence stretches longer than she expected, something deeper begins to happen inside her. At first, it's just a subtle shift, something she can ignore, something she can distract herself from. But as the days pass and the quiet remains steady, her mind starts doing what the human mind is built to do, fill in the blanks. And when a woman doesn't have answers about a man she once had emotional access to, her imagination starts working overtime. This is where the real unraveling begins, not because she misses you romantically yet, because the silence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty creates emotional tension she can't easily soothe. She begins by assuming she still has the same place in your life. She believes you're still thinking about her, still waiting, still affected. But when silence continues without slips, without accidental updates, without weak moments where you reach out, that belief weakens. Her ego starts to feel the pressure first. Because whether she admitted it or not, she was used to the version of you who responded instantly, who cared too openly, who gave too freely. That version you fed her self confidence. It reassured her that no matter how much she pushed you away, no matter how much distance she created, she still mattered in your world. But when you switch from chasing to silence, that ego supply is cut, and she doesn't know how to explain that sudden emptiness to herself. A woman's mind is wired for emotional patterns. She learns people through consistency, how they show up, what they do, how they react. You had a pattern she depended on. You cared more than she did. You tried harder. You forgave faster. You initiated everything, but your silence disrupts that pattern. It flips the dynamic. It forces her to question what changed in you. And more importantly, when exactly it happened, she starts replaying the past because she needs a timeline. She wonders if she missed something, if she pushed too far, if she misread how much power she thought she had. And once that questioning begins, her mind becomes a loop she can't escape. Silence works like a mirror. It reflects her behavior back at her. When she tries to think of the last conversation you had, she starts seeing the things she did wrong, things she brushed off at the time, things she blamed on you, things she assumed didn't matter. But silence magnifies them. Suddenly, the way she dismissed your feelings, the way she took your effort for granted, the way she pulled away when you needed closeness, they don't look so harmless anymore. They look like mistakes. And regret always starts with recognizing a mistake. The mind hates uncertainty. It needs closure even when the truth is uncomfortable. But your silence gives her no closure, no explanation, no emotional safety net. And that makes her wonder things she never thought she'd have to consider. Did he finally wake up? Did he realize he deserved better? Is there someone else? Did he finally get tired of waiting for me? Those questions don't feel good. They create a kind of tension that sits heavy in her chest. It doesn't go away when she goes out or when she talks to friends or when she distracts herself, because the silence follows her. And every time she picks up her phone, hoping for a message that doesn't come, that tension grows. It becomes a quiet reminder that she doesn't have the control she once believed she had. And here's the part she won't tell anyone. She starts missing the emotional attention she used to receive from you. Not necessarily you as a person yet, but the feeling she got from having someone so devoted. She starts missing the safety of being wanted. She starts missing the validation she didn't appreciate before. Silence doesn't just make her question you, it makes her question herself, and that's when her mind truly begins to struggle. This is where her fear starts turning into emotional attachment again, even if she doesn't want to admit it. When your silence lasts longer than she ever imagined, something happens that she never expected. Her confidence starts cracking, not because she suddenly realizes she lost the love of her life, not because she feels some dramatic surge of longing, but because the reality she constructed in her mind no longer matches what's happening. She believes she understood you. She believes she had you emotionally figured out. She believes she could predict your reactions, your messages, your responses. But silence breaks that illusion. And once that illusion is gone, she starts losing her emotional balance piece by piece. It begins with a quiet shift, a subtle flirt she brushes off at first. She tells herself you're just giving space. She tells herself you'll return eventually. She tells herself she still has the same power over you. But that discomfort grows when she sees that your silence isn't temporary, it's intentional, it's controlled, it's disciplined. And that's what unnerves her, because discipline means you're not acting emotionally anymore. You're acting from strength, not reaction. You're acting from clarity, not desperation. And that is something she never prepared for. She starts checking your online presence without even thinking about it. She notices when you're active. She notices what you post or don't post. She notices the absence of your energy in her world. And suddenly, the silence she once found peaceful now becomes a reminder of your detachment. She starts wondering, why isn't he reaching out? Why isn't he trying anymore? Did he really move on? She won't admit this to anyone, but she begins comparing her current situation to the version of life she had with you. She remembers how safe she felt knowing you cared. She remembers the comfort of being able to reach out whenever she wanted. She remembers the warmth she received even on days she didn't deserve it. Silence forces her to revisit all of that, not because she wants to, but because the contrast feels sharp now. Where there was once emotional abundance, there is now emptiness, and emptiness is uncomfortable for anyone who's used to being adored. Soon, her thoughts stop being casual and start becoming intrusive. She'll be doing something simple, getting ready, heading to work, scrolling her phone, and your absence hits her out of nowhere, not dramatically, but quietly, like a sudden chill in the room. She starts wondering if you've met someone new, if you're happier now, if you laugh more without her, if you're finally living for yourself instead of living for her. These questions aren't about jealousy yet, they're about fear. Because if you truly moved on, it means she miscalculated her value in your life. And that's a blow to the ego no one enjoys taking. Silence also makes her revisit the final moments between you. She remembers the things she said without thinking, the cold responses, the emotional distance she created, the attitude she gave you because she assumed you'd always be there. Now she sees those moments differently. The same words she once felt justified saying now sound careless in hindsight. The dismissiveness she thought you'd tolerate forever now feels like something she should have handled with more maturity. Silence is unforgiving because it gives her time to analyze, time to rethink, time to regret. She may talk to friends, trying to make sense of it, trying to convince herself she's fine, but every conversation somehow circles back to you. Not because she's obsessed, but because silence made her realize she no longer controls the dynamic. And for someone who once felt secure in your affection, losing that control shakes her deeply. And here's where things truly shift. She starts to fear the possibility that you found the strength she once doubted you had. She starts to fear that you finally respected yourself enough to walk away for good. She starts to fear that she didn't just lose your presence, she lost your love, your attention, your loyalty. And that thought, more than anything else, is what starts to hurt her. Because now, for the first time, she realizes the silence she thought she wanted might be the silence that cost her everything. When your silence stretches longer than she ever anticipated, something shifts inside her that she didn't see coming. Her mind stops focusing on what you used to do and starts obsessing over what you're doing now. At first, she told herself you were just emotional, that you needed space, that you'd eventually come back like you always did. But when the silence remains unbroken, when the days pass and there's nothing from you, not a message, not a reaction, not a sign, her imagination begins working overtime. And the things she imagines are far more powerful than anything you could ever say. It starts with small questions, simple, harm K, is he busy? But those questions don't satisfy her for long because deep down she knows you're not someone who just disappears without reason. Eventually, the questions evolve into deeper, more emotional ones. Why hasn't he reached out? Has he moved on? Did he finally get tired of me? She starts replaying the last conversations you had, wondering if she overlooked something. She rethinks every moment where she brushed you off, acted distant, or didn't appreciate the effort you were putting in. Silence turns memories into mirrors, and every mirror reflects something she wishes she handled differently. Then the comparisons begin. She thinks back to the version of you she knew, the man who cared, who checked in, who would drop everything if she needed help. That man is gone, replaced by someone who's completely silent. And because she doesn't know what you're thinking anymore, her mind fills in the blanks. She wonders if you're finding peace without her, if you're finally prioritizing yourself, if all the things you promised you'd change, you actually changed, but for yourself, not for her. This idea unsettles her because for the first time, she realizes she may have inspired your growth by hurting you, and now she may be the one who gets none of the benefits of that growth. Her mind also begins to fear the possibility of someone else. She doesn't imagine you with another woman because she thinks you replaced her, but because she knows what you're capable of giving. She knows the depth of your loyalty. She knows how powerful your attention feels. And the thought of someone else receiving the warmth she took for granted makes her feel something she hasn't felt in a long time. Jealousy mixed with regret. Not the dramatic kind, but the kind that quietly eats at her when she's alone, the kind that makes her check your social media at 2 a.m., hoping to see nothing but finding too little to give her answers. Silence also makes her question her own choices. She starts reviewing her decisions, why she pulled away, why she acted interested, why she believed you'd always stay. She begins to see that her behavior wasn't strength or independence, it was emotional immaturity. She realizes she didn't lose you overnight. She slowly pushed you away with her assumptions and her pride. And now silence forces her to face the consequences of those choices without distraction. And here's where the real panic begins. She starts to fear that you truly outgrew her. She wonders if you discovered peace without the emotional roller coaster, if you found comfort in focusing on yourself, if your world became calmer the moment she exited it. The silence that once felt like relief to her now feels like a void she can't fill. She may try to distract herself, friends, work, social media, meaningless conversations, but nothing truly works because the unanswered questions linger in every quiet moment. This is the stage where she realizes something profound. You weren't the one who needed her silence, you were the one she should have fought to keep. And that realization hits harder than anything you could ever say because it wasn't created by your words. It was created by her own mind turning against her. In that moment, she understands that your silence is no longer a reaction, it's a boundary. And boundaries, once set by a man she underestimated, are incredibly hard to break. And that's when regret finally begins to grow inside her. When you finally go quiet longer than she expected, something unusual happens inside her mind, something she never imagined would happen with you of all people. She starts replaying everything, every word she said, every moment she brushed you off, every time she assumed you'd still be there waiting. Silence forces her into self reflection, and that reflection becomes a mirror she can't escape. She begins to see where she pushed too far, where she overplayed her ego, where she thought your patience was endless. And the moment she realizes your silence isn't anger, but acceptance, that's when the panic begins. Because acceptance means you've stopped fighting for her. Acceptance means you're no longer trying to prove your worth. Acceptance means the chapter is closing without a dramatic scene. And for her, that's far more terrifying than any argument. A man arguing still cares. A man questioning still cares. A man explaining himself still cares. But a man who goes silent, that's a man who has stepped out of the emotional arena entirely. That's a man who has stopped bleeding for someone who didn't value the cuts. She begins to fear that the version of you she once knew, the man who cared deeply, who tried sincerely, who showed up even when she didn't deserve it, is disappearing. She feels the shift because your energy is no longer directed at her. It's directed back into yourself. When you go quiet long enough, she realizes you're rebuilding the parts she took for granted, and that realization hits harder than any breakup conversation ever could. It makes her question the stability of her own choices. She starts wondering who you're becoming without her. She wonders who gets your attention now. She wonders who gets those long, thoughtful texts, those meaningful conversations, those midnight laughs. She wonders if someone else is experiencing the gentle strength she once dismissed. And that uncertainty eats at her because it removes the illusion of control she thought she had. Silence creates mystery, and mystery creates insecurity for someone who believes she could predict your every move. Your quietness forces her to recognize that connection isn't guaranteed, that affection isn't permanent, that a good man only stays as long as he feels valued. And when she finally senses that you're no longer emotionally available, that you're no longer checking her story, no longer responding instantly, no longer appearing the moment she calls, that's when regret begins to crawl in. That's when the fear of loss becomes louder than her ego ever was. She begins to fear the man you're becoming, the stronger, calmer, more focused version of you who no longer needs validation from the one who hurt you. She fears the man who learned to choose himself because deep down, she knows that once a man reaches that state, he never returns to who he used to be. She fears that your silence is transforming you into someone she cannot manipulate, someone she cannot influence, someone she no longer has access to. And slowly she realizes the truth. She didn't lose you when you walked away. She lost you the moment she made you feel like you didn't matter. Your silence only revealed what was already broken. And now she's left with the consequences of a choice she thought she'd never regret. And that's the moment she finally understands the cost of hurting a man who only wanted to love her right. Here is your necessary ending line. Sometimes silence is the loudest truth a man can ever speak. There comes a moment, after you've stayed silent longer than she ever expected, when her mind begins to fear the one thing she never thought she'd experience with you, the possibility that you've outgrown her. Not replaced her, not moved on out of spite, but genuinely evolved into a version of yourself that no longer fits the man she once knew, the man she felt she could always return to, the man she counted on even when she didn't offer the same commitment in return. This fear doesn't come suddenly, it builds slowly, creeping in through the cracks of every unanswered message, every story you don't view. Every day you remain calm and distant instead of emotional and reactive. It shows her that your silence wasn't a weapon, it was a transition, a shift, a transformation. She begins to realize that the man she once had access to, the man who once overexplained himself, who once tried to fix everything, who once waited for closure, clarity, and validation, has quietly matured into someone who doesn't chase what hurts him. And that evolution threatens her more than anger ever could, because anger means you're stuck in the past. Silence means you're preparing for the future. She sees that you're becoming emotionally self sufficient, no longer relying on her attention, her responses, or her presence to feel grounded. And that's when the fear becomes real. You're not punishing her, you're simply leveling up. She notices that your social presence changes. You're more intentional, more disciplined, more focused on your goals, your purpose, your peace. The man who used to wait for her is now moving forward without hesitation. And the more she watches this evolution, the more she realizes she's no longer part of your trajectory. She may never say it out loud, but internally she fears what every woman fears when she hurts a good man. She fears that another woman will benefit from the healed, improved, upgraded version of you. She fears someone else will receive the emotional maturity she mocked, the patience she drained, the love she overlooked. She begins to reflect on how much easier it was when you were insecure, unsure, or emotionally dependent. She had more control then. But now you've reached a level of inner power where her validation is no longer currency, and that terrifies her because when a man stops needing reassurance from the person who caused his pain, he becomes untouchable. He becomes unpredictable, he becomes free, and freedom is the one thing she never expected you to taste, especially not because of the silence she thought would make you chase harder. She starts to question where she fits in your new life. She wonders if you still think about her. She wonders if you still replay the memories that once meant everything. But what scares her most is the possibility that you've accepted everything that happened and moved on without resentment. When a man lets go without bitterness, that's when he's truly gone. And deep down, she knows your silence wasn't an exit, it was growth. And growth is irreversible. She fears you have risen into a new chapter where she no longer has a role, and that fear becomes heavier each day you remain calm, composed, and distant. Your evolution exposes what she lost. Your stillness magnifies what she took for granted. Your silence shows her the man she could have had, but can no longer reach. And that is when she realizes the truth she never wanted to face. Your growth became the closure she never expected, and the peace you found within yourself is the one thing she can never disturb again. Here is your necessary ending line. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply becoming the man she thought you'd never be.